Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Mommy Loves to Read. I'm Olivia and thank you for joining me today. So today I'm here to do my first ever wrap up for the month of July. I'm really excited. I always watch everyone else's wrap up videos and now it's my turn to do one. So I'm really good reading month. I didn't realize how many books I read this month until I went in my Goodreads app to get all the books together to show you guys. And then I was like, man, you've been like on a reading roll this month. I don't know, I guess I read a lot. So yes, I'm going to share all those books with you guys. I actually wound up reading 5 books this month, which, disclaimer, a lot of these books were like short books, so they only took me like 1 or 2 days to read. So that is why I was able to read so many books this month. So the first book that I'm going to talk about, actually I don't have, but I will insert a picture. I borrowed it from my library and it was called Well-Read Black Girls. That was a really good book. It was a book that was full of short stories, all written by African American women, and they talk about the first time they saw themselves inside of a book. So, and it was all type of people in the book. There was actors in the books, writers in the books, people from all walks of life, and they were just talking in the book. And the one thing that I also liked about the book is every section, it would give you like a list of books written by African American, I think they were all women, by African American women in each genre. So there was like one section where it was like poetry, and one where it was like fantasy, and one where it was like fiction. So that was really good because I'm always looking for books to add to my book list. So it was really good to see all those books that were added to the book list. And then also opened my eyes to some genres that I never really read. Like, I'm not really good. I really like that about that book. And like I said, they were all short stories. So I was able to read that book in like 2 days. All the short stories were really good. So if you're looking for like a fun book to read, that's kind of like a quick read, that's a really good book. And then, side note, my favorite story inside that book was from, she's an actor. Her name is Gabourey Sidibe. I hope I'm saying that right. She's the girl who played Precious in the movie Precious. But her story, that was like my favorite story in the whole book. Like, when I was reading it, it made me laugh out loud. Like, I chuckled out loud when I was reading her story. And so that was like my favorite story out of that book. But like I said, all the stories in that book were really great, and I recommend that book to you guys. And like I said, that's it. And then the next book that I read this month is by Toni Morrison, and it's called The Bluest Eyes. So I haven't really read that many books by Toni Morrison. I got this book, I want to say last year. There's a local bookstore in my area that does a big sale every year, and all the books are like $1 and under. And so that is why I picked up this book, because it was really cheap and it looked interesting to me, and it had like the Oprah Book Club thing on it. So I was like, yeah, I'll pick it up. But I actually really love this book. It's written back during the Great Depression, and it's about a girl named Pecola, and it pretty much is telling like her story. She's growing up in the Great Depression. Her family is like really poor, and her dad is like a drunk, an alcoholic. He drinks all the time. Her brother keeps running away from home because he doesn't want to deal with what's going on at home. And her mom is not really like, I don't want to say she's not really maternal, but she's not really maternal when it comes to her kids. She works for a family, like a white family, and she's really good with their kids. But when it comes to her own kids, she doesn't really like take care of them. And like I said, the dad is a drunk. And so the girl Pecola, throughout the book, she's described as someone who's not very like attractive physically. Like, she has very distinct features, but they're not like distinct features that are beautiful. They're very distinct features that make her look like ugly. And so her dream is to get blue eyes, because she feels like if she has blue eyes like all the other white girls that she knows, then she will be the most beautiful girl in the world. And so it's pretty much telling you about her journey through that. This book does have a lot of twists and turns. There's also like some abuse in here. So if you're, maybe that's not something you can handle, you might not want to read this book. There's a couple in that. This was a really good book. Like I said, it was a really short read. It only has, 205 pages. So like I said, I read this in like 2 days, and it was really good. The next book that I read is Zenzele. This was another book that was really, really good, and I'm glad I picked it up. It was another one that's a really short read. I actually have a review about this book on my channel if you want to check it out. But yes, this was a really good book. I really loved it. Quick overview of it. It's a book about a Zimbabwean mother writing a letter to her daughter who was abroad at Harvard. And she's pretty much just telling her daughter all the things she wanted to tell her, but she wasn't able to tell her before she left. And she's just encouraging her to just always stay true to who she is and never forget where she comes from, and to let the lessons that she has learned at home help her when she's abroad, to continue to learn lessons, and that the lessons that she will learn while she's abroad, to bring them back and share those with her friends and family in Zimbabwe. So this is a really good book. This is another one where I read this book in like 2 days. When I picked it up, I couldn't put it down. I had to finish. It's really good, and it's really chock full of just like wisdom and insight. And I feel like this is a book that you're going to get, and you're going to want to read it over and over again, because every time you read it, you're going to find something new in it. So this was a really good book. The next book I read is called The Whale and the Mine. So this was another book that I got from that book sale at my local bookstore. I really didn't know much about it. I read like the synopsis and it seemed interesting. And once again, it was like 25 cents. So I was like, if I don't like it, I only wasted 25 cents. But this book was really good. This book was also set during the Great Depression. And it's about a family, and they have a whale on their property. And one night, the youngest daughter, she's around 10, she sees someone come in the dark and throw a baby in their whale. Well, she tells her family, and no one believes her. They're like, no one in our community would do that. Like, we know everyone in our community. Everyone in our community is good people. Like, you're seeing things. And plus, it's really dark. Well, a few days later, when her mom is getting water out of the well, lo and behold, there's a baby blanket that pops up. And so Okay, guys, I'm back. Sorry, one of my kids woke up and needed lunch. But as I was saying, so in this book, and when she did that, there was a baby blanket folding on top, so it's whale. So throughout this story, it's pretty much the daughter and the little girl who saw the person throw the baby in the well, and her older sister are trying to figure out like who did that, because like I said, everyone in this town is good people. Like, the person who did this had to be like a terrible person. Why would you do something so terrible to throw a baby in there? Well, the police actually informed them that when they ran tests on the baby, that the baby was actually already dead when it was thrown in the well, and they found that out because there was no water in the baby's lungs. And so the girl and her sister are going all over town, like talking to different parents and stuff that they know who have babies and all these things. Well, what actually winds up happening is they help their dad. It's during summer, so they're not in school, I guess. And they go to pick cotton with their dad at a neighboring farm, someone that he helps all the time. And in talking to those that farmer's kids, they find out that like they have an aunt that just moved into town and all these things. And so the girl starts talking to the aunt, and they finally find out that the aunt actually is the one who throws the baby in the well. But she, like, in our time, she probably has like postpartum depression or something, so that's why she threw the baby in the well, because she said she was trying to baptize the baby. And so this book is pretty much just like a coming of age tale of this girl, kind of like through her search of trying to find out who did this, she just learns a lot about different people, because when they're going around town looking for people, they like are checking the people who they feel are most likely to have thrown the baby in the well, maybe because like they don't have a lot of money, or maybe, you know, they're not happy in their marriage and all these things. And what they come to find out is a lot of those people, like the mom that they found that didn't have a lot of money, and she had like 10 kids, her kids were like the happiest kids ever because she didn't have a lot of money, but she genuinely loved them and took care of them. And then the very person that you would least expect to have done it is the person who did it, and it wasn't for the reasons that they thought. It had nothing to do with her trying to get rid of the baby or anything like that. So this once again was like a really good book. I wouldn't say it was a short read, but it was a book that like once you read it, you want to keep going to find out, because you really want to find out like who threw this baby in the well and why. So this is a good book. I recommend that you read this too. The next book that I read is The Warmth of Other Suns. So I have a review about this book on my channel, so I'm going to try and not be too long with it. winded when I talk about this because I really like this book. So this book is about the Great Migration, which it was very informative. I learned so much from reading this book about the Great Migration that I didn't know. Like I said, before I read this book, I thought I knew a lot about the Great Migration, and then once I read this, my eyes were just open, and I was like, oh girl, you didn't know anything. So I'm really glad that I stumbled upon this book, that I was able to read it, and I found out so much good information. This book follows the lives of 3 characters. Ida Mae, who was born and raised in Mississippi, and she migrated to Chicago. It follows George, who was born and raised in Florida, and he migrated to New York. And then it follows Robert, who was born and raised in Louisiana, and then he migrated to California. So pretty much the book just follows all their life stories, and it tells you why they migrated, like what was the thing that jolted them to say, okay, we need to leave the South to move to the North, how they had to change and assimilate to be able to survive in the North, and what that journey was like for them and for their kids, and how like their kids who have lived their whole, all 3 of them in the book, even though they were born and raised in the South, because they migrated to the North, they actually spent more of their life living in the North than they did in the South. So even though they knew so much about the South and they had like these connections to the South, looking at them, you would assume they were just Northerners. So it's very interesting seeing like how they navigated life and how their kids navigated life, because even though they had lived in the North for so long, they were all 3 like Southern at their root. So it was really interesting. So like I said, I do recommend this book. It's a very good book. And then the last book that I read this month is Children of Blood and Bone. This book was really, really good. I feel like I'm a little late to the Children of Blood and Bone train, but I'm glad that I hopped on it. This book was really good. It's a fantasy book. It is set in Nigeria, and it is about a group of people, the Magi, who have magical powers. And they were wiped out. The Magi people were wiped out in a raid. They were all killed. But during this raid, the king who had them killed actually left the Magi children alive, and they're called Divergents. And he left them alive because without the older Magi to teach him anything, their powers would not, come to fruition. And the Divergent children, they live pretty much in oppression. It's very obvious who they are because one of the distinguishing things about them is they have stark white, it's silver hair. And so they pretty much live in oppression. They're taxed all the time. The taxes are being raised higher and higher. And if you can't pay these taxes, then you have to go to the Stokes. And if you go to the Stokes, you really don't know what's going to happen. You could be killed. You can be murdered. You can be sent to. So while Zelly, I'm sorry guys, I don't know where I left off. My son woke up. So like I said, if you cannot pay these taxes and things like that, then you are sent to the Stokes, and from that point it's kind of like unknown. You could have to, serve in the castle. You can be killed. They use them to build things. They pretty much exploit them. It's pretty much slavery. So in order for this not to happen, Zaylee goes into Lagos to sell a fish that her father has caught is very, very valuable. So she sells the fish. She gets the money so she can pay her tax. And then when she's leaving, a girl grabs her and she says, please help me, they're chasing me. And Zaylee doesn't really want to help her. She's kind of torn what she should do, but she decides to help her. And so in helping her, she later finds out that the girl that she's actually helping, her name is Amari, and she's actually the king's daughter, and she has stolen this scroll that her father's army found that will bring back the powers of the Magi. But in order to do that, you have to do a special ceremony. So this book follows their journey trying to get to that ceremony and all the things that they must have. There's other items that they need in order to do this ceremony. So this book is just following her journey trying to get those things, and it's a very interesting book. Like, it has lots of twists and turns. I don't want to give it all. Keep you wanting to read and find out more. So yes, those are all the books that I read this month. Like I said, I had a really good reading month. I read a lot of books. My goal is normally only to read 2 books a month. So I read a lot more than 2. So I'm really glad about that. And then, like I said, I actually liked all the books that I read. Now, if you guys enjoyed watching this wrap up, comment down below and let me know if you read any of these books, if you plan on reading any of these books for the month of July. So thank you for joining me today, and until next time, bye.